Very good morning to you guys. Hope you're doing well. So obviously it's a huge day today, and it's almost absolutely guaranteed that we're going to get a hike today, and it's obviously been priced in because the 98.9 is almost it's almost 100%, isn't it? So if it does deviate from that, oh, that's going to be huge. It's going to be a big shock. Okay, so the markets are completely expecting a hike today, but like I say, it's all been priced in, and the big fish have repositioned for this outcome. But how, like I say, if we get a any deviation from that at all, it's going to be a big shock. And Powell's going to be very key on his press conference. So I think we're going to possibly see a big roller coaster at the FMC interest rate announcement. There'll be a lot of volatility, and we could be a little bit risk off. And so much as that the dollar can strengthen, and at the Powell speech, it could soften, and then we could be risk on. So in the space of about an hour, we're going to see a lot of fluctuation at the interest rate decision announcement, and then obviously at the Powell speech. So be really careful. I say it all the time, but I do mean it, and you have to know where your exits are. A good example of knowing your exit was gold, which I'll show you here. So essentially, we had a target from the SLC. All right, so the US yields were rising, so therefore we put a bit of pressure on gold. So gold fell because the US yields were pumping quite a bit, and we came down to take the SLC. And look what happened. And what's probably going to happen is that we're going to take the SLC above, and then we'll come down to take the one below, then above, then below, and it just repeats forever like a cycle, a continual liquidation cycle of bulls and bears. All right, so you could probably argue technically we're making like quite a bullish sort of U. Can you see? So we'll have to see how we go, and remember, know where to exit. It's all well and good entry. You might be really good at nailing the entry, but where do you exit? And one really good place to exit is where the liquidity has to be ejected from the market and through stops, and that's where the big fish are going to enter after taking liquidity. Right, so that's their target. So we want to target where they're targeting, right? So just a heads up, really. It's like knowing when to exit with take profit, and also knowing when to exit with an SL as well. So there are three things that you need to really practice on, and the SLCs really help, especially with the TP and SL. Entry is not so bad if you're okay at technicals, but you might struggle with the exit. So that just a little heads up there. It's a little tip. And I guess we'll talk about the robot. So let me go to RDP. RDP. Bring that across. All right, and these are the open trades. And we had a terrible day Monday, and we had a bad formula on the spreadsheet, and it wasn't using absolute references, which is what you might see on a Google sheet when you see dollar signs. Maybe I can show you. And my remote desktop has been very slow recently. I've had to reboot it, and still quite slow. Ah, God. Yeah, see, I'm clicking it, and it's just really horrible. God, that's terrible, isn't it? Let's go to my physical computer. So what I mean about the absolute references is this, and it's basically that dollar sign. And what would happen without the dollar sign, it wasn't locked. And so the formula can go a little bit out of bonk. The formula is correct, but it can break. And now we've got the dollar signs in. That's a thing called absolute reference. And so now, while the logic is fine, it's also locked in. So the logic is now locked in place. So it will never fail now. So that's the update with the robot. And because we didn't have those cells locked in, it triggered pound CAD trades over and over when it shouldn't have, because it didn't satisfy the checks. All right, so we encountered quite a lot of loss on pound CAD. Let's come back to the RDP, and it finally loaded, and then we can go to the robot. And so we're looking at a little bit of Aussie weakness against the Kiwi, a little bit of Aussie weakness against the CAD, and we're looking for a Kiwi weakness against the yen. And this Aussie USD is going to fluctuate because it's obviously connected to the dollar, and we're going to really roller coaster on the dollar. So that could be an SL or TP. No one knows. You just have to know where to exit, and also to know your sizes as well. And so it's just a video really just to say know your exits and your risk management is so important. I can't stress it enough. So DAX, well, they've gone long, so we can create a box, which is a bit of an ominous box because we'll be creating a resistance with this diagonal break. And we are very extreme as well. And ideally we're looking for buys, but this has to fall first. I would not be buying up here at all. You can see we're just chopping. So we've got resistance now on DAX, quite slow, at yeah, sort of 1695. It's so slow, isn't it? Look, it's not loading it. 16240. And you know, that's probably what's going to happen. We're going to fall, and then we're going to look for buy opportunities, maybe even down here potentially, maybe here, but ideally we want a big flush. So that's DAX. That's a little bit ominous. So remember those levels. That's your resistance. We are falling, which is fine because you know that's the sell. So we should fall. Let's do US 30, the Dow Jones, and once it loads, very strong, sideways. So no comment there. So there isn't anything to be said. We can rise or fall. It's because it's sideways, so we can't comment on that. So that has to do whatever it wants. We're quite extreme as well, like DAX, S&P. And they were going long, but we nearly had the crossover, but we haven't got the crossover yet, so we can't draw a box, but we can draw one here. And let me see this one. So that's a support, this one here, and then stretch that across once it loads. I don't know why it's so slow today. It might be because it's doing a Windows update, I'm not sure. So that's a support, so keep an eye on 4560, 4567, and then gold, but we sort of covered gold already. And it's really important to know when to exit with TP and SL. And so it's a big old run, took a lot of liquidity. There's your stop loss cluster. You could have entered there for a long, and you could have taken profit at where they have to exit. And so that's that. So if we fall, it will mean that these guys get paid because they are selling it. So be careful. You might want to just bide its time for just go a little bit sideways before taking out the liquidity above to make it, maybe just to induce more positions. I'm not sure. So very naughty. So I think perhaps up and then down. So 1950 and I think 1974 area was the SLC. So that's it really. So apologies for the robot, but now we've got this fix in. It's now locked. And like I've been saying for a while, we are still testing, so be really careful. You don't really want to be using live funds because we're still finding issues. And I think probably in a couple of weeks, I'll probably go live, I think. But we just want to make sure that we have like a string of weeks of profit before going live. Obviously, because we don't want to be using live funds if we're encountering small technical issues like this absolute sell reference. I wasn't really even aware that we needed it, but of course we did. And what happened over the weekend, that formula broke and it wasn't locking in the sells. So the reason that we haven't got Aussie CAD is because the failure rate needs to be higher than 70%. Once that creeps higher, we'll get that Aussie CAD sell. Okay, so that's the condition there. It's moved sufficiently on the day for a sell, but we need the failure rate to be a bit higher, and then we'll get that trade, and that's it. So long day, very long day, in fact, especially if you woke up early. It's time to take breaks, take lots of water breaks, get some exercise, and I'll be back later for the FOMC. So trade safely, and I'll speak to you soon.